Welcome to Prasad Pod. I'm your host, Jarrell Prasad.
And I'm Paul Campbell.
We've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks, enjoying Holy Week and Easter. We want to wish you guys, happy holidays, and we're going to be coming up to Memorial Day here in the month of May. So we have some topics to discuss from the time we've been absent and what's happened in the past week. The first topic we wanted to discuss was how Trump has been doing all these DEI cuts recently. Well, there's a few things that have fallen victim to the cuts. Some special federal grants to fund social programs that are necessary for sexual assault victims, trafficking victims, and we want to just highlight that. Paul, if you want to go ahead and start sharing your screen, we can dive right into that. All right. The U.S. Department of Justice has canceled over 365 grants. My wife's a social worker, and she was just saying that the NOVA grants, one of those big federally funded grants that used to bring in new advocates into the field, and that use that money to help fund victims of sexual assault crimes. That program or that grant is no longer being available. And, my daughter, she wants to become a social worker as well. And she could have benefited from such as those grants that would help cover the cost of living for her while she goes to seek the necessary certifications or degrees required in that field. And that field is severely lacking these days, and it needs more people in that field to, do good for the world. And, the amount of assault victims continues to rise, even with the deportation of these illegal migrants. There's still a number of assault cases domestically, and a lot of sex trafficking victims, and a lot of victims of rape crimes and sexual assault. And a lot of these people are minors, and they can use the 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 assistance from these grants to help improve their life or get them out of these situations. Now, Paul, you do have an opinion on this.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that these social programs aren't are leaving because they there is good that is done with them and people are helping people, but the problem is that the federal funding that is paying for these things is also going towards other things that are used not for their intended purposes. And we've done podcasts in the past about how the misallocation, the fraud, waste, and abuse of these funds. So it's really sad. It seems like for some of these things that they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. To your point, my hope is that basically, like we're going through a transition. I think governmentally, socially, economically, and I think what's happening is there's going to be changes that are made. So while there's a lot of unfortunate and tragic victims of that are recipients of these grants and is the aid that comes from your local state governments and all these sort of things. My hope is that, well, with the External Revenue Service, with taxes being completely eliminated for anyone making less than $200,000 a year, with people with funds going towards us getting our money back as opposed to all of just getting taxed to death like we have been for the past for our entire adult lives. I hope that we'll have enough time and resources left over to help these victims and be charitable, and we can have that human connection helping each other out rather than rely on a government to fix a problem, which the problem's only getting worse.
But that's all like you're hoping that it gets fixed after the problem, after that they cut the funding, after that the taxes have been returned to us, and instead of continually being taken out from us. But the fact is, these people, they're still dealing with this stuff every single day. They're still rape victims that need assistance. They can't just be cast aside whilst America is figuring everything out. This administration has to set aside the time to take a look at these grants individually. I mean, with all the people that are working in the White House and in the federal government, somebody has to look over these things and say, okay, this is definitely a necessary evil, or something that we need in order to, keep, this population protected. And I understand that, when you throw out words like transgender or DEI, like everything just gets cut right now because all the fraud and waste and abuse that are associated with those words. But, we're talking about like innocent victims of sex crimes. We're talking about like the 13, 14-year-old girl who's, raped by a family member or somebody at school, and, has to, deliver that baby because she can't get an abortion. Not to say that I agree with abortion, but now she has to carry that baby full term. She needs some assistance, and these kind of grants and these programs are there to help with her. And if they just cut them all without like putting a microscope on each one, these people are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer greatly. And not that they're not already suffering now, but we need to keep some of them alive. There has to be some kind of accountability held for the programs that are needed. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that the Doge and the Trump administration are making these cuts, but they really got to look at it carefully, and they just can't blanketly cut everything off the board, because there are some necessary pieces on the board that are helping, that are very strategic and are very important to the country. So it's me saying I don't agree with every single thing the Trump administration does, and I know that in the long run, yes, it's going to be better for the country as a whole. But I mean,
Yeah, it sucks. It's tragic.
yeah,
It's horrible. Like, and it's the sad. It's heartbreaking, and it's like the worst possible situation that you try to fix and try to help out any way you can. But at the end of the day, though, and as horrible as it sounds, like I'm of the opinion, I don't want to pay for these things because nobody ever asked me. It's the same way that if you ask somebody like who homeschools, like the Amish, like do they have to pay for taxes for public school? Like, yes, they do. They don't utilize that. Why should they have to pay it? Now,
yeah, but
well, real quick, but
not to
if
cut you off, the first time you're ever doing this, but to go a little back and forth here, that's what taxes are for. Your taxes go to these social programs. They're supposed to go to these programs that are supposed to go to grants and scholarships and things of that nature. That's what your tax
yeah,
money is
but
supposed
I
to.
don't, but I don't utilize. Why do I have to pay for something that I don't use? It's like if I'm going, why do I have to? If it's totally irrelevant to me, why should I have to pay for somebody else?
Because eventually one day you might need it. Like, okay, I'm going to give you a scenario. There's uh, a program called Army Emergency Relief, where they automatically take out of every active duty soldier, they take out a small dollar amount for Army Emergency Relief. And you don't use it, you don't have to use it if you don't need to, right? But let's say a soldier like comes into that one point where they have to do it, they get a special grant where it can help offset their costs. Let's say they're displaced because of deployment or their family stranded or something like that. The Army Emergency Relief Fund will come in hand, and they just straight out deduct it from everybody's paycheck across the board, whether they use it or not. But it's not saying they can't use it. So what you're saying is because you don't use it, you shouldn't have to pay for it. But you're already paying for it. You're being taxed on everything. You're being taxed on, You can't live, you can't piss, you can't do anything without being taxed. You can't even die. Even your death is taxed. So why not use that tax money that you're already being taxed on, and let it actually do some good and help people? So what I'm saying is not tax you more. I'm saying by all means tax you less, but let them go ahead and prioritize and scrutinize the necessary programs that continue to help people. Because do you want to see innocent trafficked sex children from all Epstein Island and these Diddy parties for them to be displaced and recircled back into the system of sex trafficking? No, you want to have advocates and workers and police to help pull them out of that and restore them to a proper life. So
Yeah, but the issue is with all those people being trafficked, like our government is doing that. So I don't understand why I'm going to pay more tax dollars to the very thing that's doing it.
No, I'm not saying
No,
pay
no, no,
more tax dollars. Your
the
money's
CI,
already taxed. It's
no,
allocated somewhere.
right.
I mean, we have like the most money going towards military spending, and the United States spends more on the military industrial complex every year. So I'm not saying cut from whilst they're cutting all these social programs, people are suffering, and they can make the cuts elsewhere and still return the money to you. But necessarily, like, yeah, take out the ones that are saying like, okay, it's for transgender domestic violence. um, it shouldn't be transgender domestic violence. It should just be domestic violence across the board. It shouldn't be narrowed and specific down just to your sex or your sexual orientation. It should be for those programs. Yeah, cut those ones out that have the diversity, inclusion, and those specific, gender identities in there, and just stick to the basics and help those people out.
Yeah, and you don't want to create like a tiered system, and that's what ultimately the DEI stuff does. Then you need equality for everyone who would be receiving potential aid. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want victims of crimes to be, ministered unto and taken care of, but if if I don't use this certain thing, whatever it is that the government says I need to pay for, like if there's to me, I don't see any, like again, these social programs are, I understand the purpose that they serve, but at the same time, I think that you can, if we had a just, like if we're going to do this the right way, if we're going to make the world a better place, right? Like how do we go about doing it? I think the most optimal way would be to get as many people back into the church as possible. So we need a revival. But before that, we need a reformation. We need to get rid of some of these bad institutions and these bad programs, and because the problems aren't getting better, they just get worse every year. So eventually you have to, get rid of the program because the problem is never getting solved. Also, I don't trust anyone from the government who says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. All you need to do is pay me more money and I'll take care of your problems. Because at the end of the day, I know people are suffering, and it's like nobody wants to be in my position, which is saying like, I'm sorry, I don't think the way you've been getting help is right, which is a really weird, like, it almost is like paradoxical in how like, what's the moral implications of that? Am I saying like people shouldn't have help if, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to take the help away from saying the government will take care of it, to us, you and me, the people down the street. If there's horrible things happening in your community, why is the government taking care of these people? Who's their family? Why are they to the point now where they're lost and they're just in these programs to begin with? So there's so many more questions that I have of how we got to this problem than just what ultimately comes down to just, if you throw more government money at it, it'll get fixed. If this is really reforming the government, which is why I think why I voted for Trump, is to get the bad guys out and fix the money and a million and one other things, and we'll talk about them. But I don't want to have to pay for these programs because it's my vote is to if this is what they're doing, this is what I voted for, and I didn't vote for sex assault victims to not have aid, provided to them. It's not what I voted for. What I voted for is bad programs to get cut. I haven't seen the paperwork for these things. I have to trust, unfortunately, because I can't verify. I don't work for Doge or whatever, that the things they're cutting were so rank with fraud, waste, and abuse that they had to be cut. I'm sure some of the money somewhere, somehow, did get to someone and do some good for them. It's possible, yes. But the vast majority of it must have, if I'm to trust what I'm being told by Doge, must have been so bad and so abused that we just have to end the whole darn thing. And then finally, I just hope that if we're going to end these programs, that people will start ministering to people and have accountability for their own community, rather than if we pay the government to fix this, they'll fix it. No, they won't. We know that because things are only getting worse. And I would hope that eventually we can be financially free. This is why we talk about XRP and crypto and a million and one other things we talk about, because then we can go and we can help our community, and you're never going to stop sin, and you're never going to stop human beings being horrific to one another. But if this is another way to stop the money that are making super powerful people being horrible to, other humans, then this should stop. So again, it breaks my heart to have to take the position of I want to shut down these social programs, and it makes me feel like bad for these people. And all I'm thinking about is these poor people and these children and women, and you just feel your heart breaks thinking about them. But I'm hoping that why they're cutting these ultimately leads to us taking accountability for our community and stop and literally making the world a better place. The only way we can do that is by putting better people in the world and holding ourselves accountable, and being better people ultimately. And then we hopefully won't need so many social programs, because we'll actually be taking care of one another and loving one another the way we should. So.
Yeah, well, given that, they should definitely cut a lot of the unnecessary spending, but they should also shine a light on the ones that are actually doing good out there, and not overlook those and keep those programs up and running. Like I said, my wife works for the state as a social worker, as an advocate, and the stories I hear, I can't even talk about them on this podcast because they would get pulled. They're so horrific. Just the crazy crimes and the violence and some of the tragic situations that these victims go through. And it's hard out there. And if the audience listening would even hint at that, they probably wouldn't even be able to process that. I know, I respect the work that my wife does. I couldn't do it, because I would probably end up in jail for, after hearing the first story of, some child getting abused. I'd probably go find the predator, and, even though it's not that's against my religion, but I just as a person who doesn't, see themselves as an objectively bad human being, I can't take the emotion out of that situation.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot to be had with that. We just wanted to bring highlight to this issue, and for the lawmakers and the people that are cutting the grants in the administration, just to we want them to look carefully and make sure that they're not cutting the really important stuff that people actually need, because not a lot of people are talking about this. Yes, it seems like Paul and I talk about the financial aspect of things a lot, but it's more than just finances. We generally care about the world. We're Christians. We're supposed to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And there's no greater love than to lay down your life for the life of a friend. And it doesn't have to be your best friend or somebody you know, just a random stranger. Anybody could be your friend. We just wanted to, share this with you so you're aware of it. And if your voice can reach the right ears, let them know.
And also, like, this is kind of like a call to action. If these programs are getting shut down, right, and they're helping people, well, those people still need help. Like, so what are we going to do to help them? You know what I mean? And this should be something that we all kind of reflect on. And how can I get involved to help these, folks? This is something that you want to do. And I see your point. Like, we're getting taxed anyway, so you might as well try to help somebody. But like, at the end of the day, like, if we went out and did what we were commanded to by our creator and loved one another, we wouldn't need these programs. And your heart breaks for these poor people and these, but
I'm gonna share something with you and with the audience, like that you may not know, but like a lot of these people, they need assistance with like groceries or certain items to help them after. And what my wife does is she purchases that stuff out of her own pocket, and
wow.
her job like reimburses her once in a while. But like, sometimes we'll go, even if we're in a low situation, she'll go and she'll purchase these things for these victims and these families that are suffering out of her own pocket. And it could be like a couple $100, and we'll do that to help these people. And sometimes you don't get reimbursed for a couple months, but that's, you can do stuff like that, to just talk to people. uh if you want to help, just do something to contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's get on to
Yes.
our next topic here.
Yeah.
So
And more fun stuff, more fun,
yeah.
lighthearted stuff.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Let me go ahead.
yeah. So oh, did you actually get the video up? So you want to play it?
Yeah, sure thing. Let me see.
Has announced we will put an end to Joe Biden's illegal student loan bailout attempts. No student loan has been referred to collections since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans. The student loan portfolio controlled by the federal government is nearly $1.6 trillion, but fewer than 4 out of 10 borrowers are in repayment. This is unsustainable, unfair, and a huge liability for American taxpayers. Debt cannot be wiped away. It just ends up getting transferred to others. So why should Americans who didn't go to college or went to college and responsibly paid back their loans pay for the student loans of other Americans? The Trump administration will never force taxpayers to pay student loan debts that don't belong to them. Student loan borrowers need clarity, and we're finally giving it to them. Borrowers will now be clearly expected to repay their loans, and those who default on their loan obligations will face involuntary collections. The government can and will collect defaulted federal student loan debt by withholding money from borrowers, tax refunds, federal pensions, and even their wages. America is $36 trillion in debt. We must get our fiscal house in order and restore common sense to our country. If you take out a loan, you have to pay it back. It's very simple.
Okay, so you heard the information there. They are coming after student loans that have defaulted, or people that have defaulted on their federal student loans. And the thing is, like, I don't wholeheartedly agree with this. I mean, yes, if you took out the loan, you should pay it back, but I think the circumstances have completely changed. She did say in the portion that uh, other people that have went to college and taken out loans have paid it back. But at the same time, college has grown more expensive for some reason now than it was 20 years ago. Like, you could get a full-on 4-year degree for $20,000, $30,000 back in the day, but now it's gone up to like $100,000, $200,000. People are taking out ridiculous loan amounts, and it's, most of it is just for like cost of living. It's not even for the degree itself, and it's just because the colleges have put these ridiculous requirements on people, as far as like Olympic-sized swimming pool, massage bars, things like that. Like the college doesn't need. A student can just go write the class and learn from the professor and just pay for that class. But no, now it's like ridiculous requirements. You have to stay on campus. You're a freshman. You can't drive. You have to live in the dorms. You have to pay the food expense. Even if you don't eat on the campus, you have to pay for their meal plan. And a college student can just live off of ramen noodles. My son, in his first year, he had to live on campus, and he had to live in the dorms, and he had to pay for the meal plan, and that was like $8,000 just for it was just a ridiculous amount, just for that, just for the dorms and just for the food, not even the tuition of the actual classes itself. So the situation's definitely changed, and I think the federal government and Trump should, they're going to start garnishing these people and they got to pay back, but they shouldn't like completely wipe them out and put them more into debt and more into poverty than they already are right now. There should be a little bit of a leniency, a little bit of a cushioning, because Joe Biden basically screwed everybody the last 4 years, telling them he's going to get rid of all their student loan expenses. And, I agree with that all the student loan expenses should be wiped out. The government should pay for college. College should be free. And, if you want to go to these private institutions that are Ivy League and stuff, you should pay for that yourself. But a general public university should be free. But Paul, I know you have some opinions. I've been talking for a minute.
No, it's fine. Yeah, but I think we have we already have a general public free college. It's called YouTube. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's called Prasad Pod on YouTube, right? You can research anything these days, and I know, like, so I went to college, and I studied music, right? So I was one of the poor suckers that like didn't get, I didn't go to study engineering. I didn't go to study, anything like becoming a lawyer or a doctor, things that you really need to go to college for. I was one of the people who's like, oh, I'm going to be an artist. Because you think, you're sold a bag of goods. Well, as long as you have a degree, you can get a job. And that's the weird thing is like that. I don't know who made that this unspoken rule, or it's not even an unspoken rule. It's a very spoken rule for jobs that you could have an IQ of 150 and no college degree, and a job won't hire you for an entry level role. But you could be not so smart and have a degree in literally anything, and then all of a sudden you're viable for candidate for this job. So, and I at the end of the day, I could have learned guitar stuff at home on YouTube when I wanted to get into like astrophysics, because I bought a telescope camera. I started watching astrophysics classes for the free MIT coursework that you can just go. They have all of their classes are free on YouTube. Like, there's so much information. If I want to research a book or have it read to me, I can do that on YouTube. If you want to learn, you can.
There's free certifications out there. There are. Don't get me wrong. You can, well, not free certifications. There's there are some free certifications, but they're free classes and ways to learn things. If you want to learn, there's nothing stopping you from learning, because that's your own personal development. But the thing is, you're basically paying for a piece of paper that, you're hanging on the wall that says, hey, you got this. And the jobs don't even really look at that. I mean, I've applied for like a gajillion jobs in the last 4 years, and none of them asked to see the degree. They just asked if you had the degree.
Right.
Nobody wanted to see the paper or my college transcripts or care what my GPA is. It's ridiculous. So, I mean, and that's, and I have a business degree, so you're knowing the type of jobs I'm applying for, and it's a BS in business administration, and most people don't care. They just want to know you have a degree, or there's this crazy stigma that was created in like the 90s that everybody needs to go to college, and the US was selling this dream like, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, and you live fine. But they don't explain that college is not affordable. College has gotten ridiculously pricey. Student loan expenses. People are living and paying like basically the price of a house for a student loan. You can't live inside of your degree frame, if uh, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
look, what's the average tuition cost for college in the USA? Yeah, but yeah, so in-state 10K, out-of-state 28K. I wonder is that's per year probably, right?
yeah, that doesn't, no, that's
Yeah, per
not
year. That's per
completely,
year.
yeah, and that's not completely accurate because, yeah, there are some schools that could
Well, that's
be
the
as cheap as
average.
that, but they don't put in the cost of living amount.
No,
They don't put in the dorms, they don't put in the meal plans. Uh, you know,
that seems pretty. No, that's yeah. That's the average per year though. So that's where you're getting. I mean, if it's
yeah,
30K a year, that's where you're getting 120K in debt, right? So after
yeah,
4 years.
exactly. It's and it used to be just 30K for all 4 years of college. You
Yeah,
know,
well, and that's gone up because of inflation, and also like one of the things they don't talk about with like why is it so expensive? Like to your point, does the college really need a gym, or does it need a massage parlor or whatever? Does it need all these bells and whistles? Like I don't think so. Maybe I guess you can make the argument, but really, what the a big cost that nobody really talks about is when teachers get tenure, especially these high level, very expensive, professors that have been there for 30 years, or, the reason things are expensive is you have to pay for employees. Like once the building is built, it's just there, right?
yeah,
But so what is driving the cost, and a lot of times it's, if you look at some of these football teams in the SEC, their locker rooms are nicer than most people's houses. Like it's insane. They say that some of the football programs have nicer locker rooms than like pro teams, right? So the college teams are nicer than the pros teams in terms of their facilities. So is that, so I don't know if a college that's a whole nother conversation is college sports and
yeah.
all that, um, but yeah, they don't really teach you, in my experience, like, and I'm one of the people who paid off his student loans. I took drastic steps in order to do it. So I'm of the opinion like, hey, and I used to be when I was like really, really broke and not making any money. I was like, these things need to be forgiven. And I started doing some research into the topic, like why can't I just declare bankruptcy, which is bad enough. Like I don't get credit for 7 to 10 years. So that's, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't that be enough to like get rid of this, this
And
bad
when you file
debt?
bankruptcy, student loans aren't always
They're
covered in
not.
that.
No, they're not. They're basically never covered. And I started looking into it, and I believe it was Joe Biden. Thanks, Joe. He made it so you can't declare them as part of bankruptcy, because what was happening was all of these doctors and lawyers were going to colleges, right, to become doctors and lawyers, and then they would default on their student loans. They're still a doctor, so they don't have to pay back 100 or back then $100,000 of student loan debt, which would be like $400,000 today. They would
Yeah,
default on it. That's really bad for the university. It's bad for the bank, and so that's why they made it illegal, because these doctors and a doctor typically makes like it can go up really, really high, but normally it's about $5,000 a month when they first start out. It can get up to as high as you want, but they're making, when they're doing their internships and everything, 30 to 50K. And then, so they're like, well, I'm not going to pay these student loans back. And anyway, it became a serious problem. So that's why they did it, which to me is like, okay, well, that's that's fine for doctors and lawyers, but at the end of the day, a bank is underwriting $150,000 loan worth of loans for somebody to study, you know,
communications.
yeah, or sociology or music, like
Yeah,
I don't think like at the end of the day, if you're a good musician, you don't need to go to college. Like maybe you could make the argument that it's like you could use it to network and really hone your crafts, but like if you're going to go pro or not, and you don't need to go in debt before you become an entrepreneur and get independent as an artist. So my opinion of college has drastically changed. And now it's like I took out the
yeah,
debt. I should pay this back. Because when they say, now, two things that she mentioned is these are for people who have defaulted. These aren't just for everyday folks who are paying their student loans, right, and are in good standing
Yeah.
with the bank. These are for people who went to school at taxpayers' expense, because federally funded means that you and me paid for it, and have never made a payment since 2020 or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
there are people that literally take out these loans when they go back to repayment, never pay a cent on it, and then default right away. And
Mhm.
yeah, those are the ones that should be paying it back. But I mean, overall, the fundamental institution of colleges and universities and just the way we handle federal and private student loans in this country is completely jacked up. We could take some cues from some other countries that pay for universities for their citizens. I mean, there should be like, if you strongly feel like you should go to college, then you make sure it's practical, like something like doctor, lawyer, social worker. Something that needs the certifications and needs the training and needs the degrees to back it up, the credentials. But like in the 90s, I remember what was it, like early 2000s, communications, get a communications degree is the fastest growing field. People with communications degree can't get a job. There's no communications field.
Yeah.
What field are you communicating in? There's nothing to get a degree in. And I've seen like thousands of people with communications degrees complain and say they can't pay their student loans back. There's no jobs out there for them. There's nothing they can do. Even with a business degree like myself, it's rough. So I mean, I'm going to be paying for my kids to get practical degrees, but that's me. Like most people, like you shouldn't send your kids to school if you're not willing to put in the work and pay for them. I'm willing to put in the work and work my life off to pay for my kids to go to school and get the education that they need so they can have every single advantage. But at the same time, the system's crippling. Sometimes you're screwed if you have a degree, sometimes you're screwed if you don't. And the country just makes it difficult overall for people, and the colleges and universities are profiting off of the pain. And at the end of the day, somebody's getting their money. Either the colleges, people are taking out their loans, but somebody's getting that full check for that full amount, whether it's the universities or the student loan companies or the federal government, somebody is getting that full check. And then other people have that money in flow. They have that promise of paying it back or the transition, but somebody's writing a full check and somebody's getting paid, somebody's profiting. And if you look at the universities, it's probably them. And people want to complain against the private student loan companies, against the federal government. But what they really should be directing their anger is towards the university that they're trying to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like how many? The out of state ones are the worst. I remember I've talked to somebody one time who went out of state to Alabama, and they were like $200,000 in debt to study English or something, and you're just going like
It's the
unless
language you speak, right?
right, yeah,
I'm going to study English.
I remember but if my thing is like if a bank is willing to write here's the way I look at the argument for the student loan debt thing is like if the bank is willing to take a bet, because that's all a loan is betting, what's the likelihood they're going to pay it back. If they're willing to, there's also bad bets, right? There's a bad loan. They should, if they write a bad loan and the young student goes out and they study, psychology or whatever, because that's a very common one. They never work in the psychology field. They never get a degree, become a psychologist, and they never work in social. They just go customer service at Verizon or whatever. That person had like never pays.
Failed bet.
No, well, let's just say they just get a normal job, like no shame to it, whatever. You either graduate or you don't. Let's say you don't graduate and you still get a job in customer service anyway. But the bank made a bad bet, like you said. So why should now that person, maybe they get injured and now they can't pay back their student loans. There are times when those loans still won't be forgiven. And so like I think that if the bank should have to eat it I put it this way. I don't think that the cost of tuition, it works hand in hand. The university determines the cost of tuition, the bank pays, the loan, right? Or offers a loan, I should say. I think that if the banks were held responsible for offering predatory lending to young impressionable people, that the cost of tuition wouldn't inflate as much as it has, because there would have, if you could go back and
Yeah,
somehow
if it wasn't easy to get a loan for.
if you could forensically look at a loan, and as opposed, because it was originally doctors and lawyers weren't paying back their student loans because they go $400,000 in debt. They still get a good job because they got the degree, but and then they just don't pay it. What's the point? I'll just bankruptcy, and then I'm debt free anyway, and I'm still making cash in hand money for now. Right. Okay, so that's, you can write in there, you could change the terms of the loan. I'm sure they could figure a way out that if you take out so much that you can't default on it, right? But then the bank, I still don't even think that should be allowed, because like if the bank shouldn't be lending out these loans, like it shouldn't be so expensive to begin with. So anyway, I'm kind of talking in circles at this point, but these banks are giving predatory lending. It is a form of predatory lending to young impressionable people who are saying you need a degree to get a job, and if
Yeah,
you don't,
I mean, it's coming from the banks, but I mean, the original root is the universities raising their prices because the banks are handing out all these loans, and the university should be held accountable. They should lower their prices. These facilities on their campus are already built. They don't need to add more. They don't need another wing. I mean, they also get private donations, most of them as well,
Oh,
so,
and they get
and then
tax money
they
too.
constantly petition. I went to the University of Maryland. They're constantly petitioning, oh, alumni support and donate, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, I already paid my money.
Yeah, seriously, I hate getting the alumni letters, but uh, um, I lost it. You said something that yeah, the Harvard recently got uh, it was something like they got all their federal funding cut because of anti-Semitism or whatever. Like, which like that's a whole free speech conversation I don't want to get into. But the point is, I was like, why the hell is Harvard, of all places, getting federal money? They're the richest people in the world. What do they need tax money for? That's ridiculous. Like, so if it's the one time I'm okay with the First Amendment being trampled on, is just cut Harvard's federal funding, because like they don't need any more money, first of all. And second of all, like if anti-Semitic rhetoric or whatever is the excuse for ending their federal funding, so be it. I don't care. Like, so, anyway, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. All right. We're kind of running out of time here, so let's quickly jump into our XRP portion of the episode, and then we'll wrap things up. So what just happened this past week was Ripple tried to acquire Circle, which is the USDC stablecoin. And, right now the number one stablecoin is Tether. Number two is Circle, but USDC. So it's USDT, then USDC, and then all the way like number 20th or 200, you have RLUSD that just came out. But Ripple's trying to strategically position themselves to be the stable coin, clearinghouse, just be that beast and acquire whatever they need in the business. So Circle rejected their offer of $4 to $5 billion or $5 to $6 billion. But there's speculation that they're still in talks. So Ripple might increase their offer. There's a rumor that it's $20 billion, but we haven't heard anything back from that. So, I mean, that news might change in the coming weeks. We'll see. But I think Ripple might just continue until they make that sweet deal and get Circle. I think that that's one of their prime focus. They're telling these guys either get in or get out of the way.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, I think the way I think of it is, not only are they trying to own the market share of this, the stablecoin market share, the vast majority of it, which Ripple would if they acquired Circle, because they're such a big, player in the stablecoin field, and but I think Ripple is trying to buy Circle's partnerships more than they're trying to buy Circle, right? And it's valued them at $5 billion so far. So, and it could also be that you know, well, they are supposedly, the rumor is that they're still in talks, right? So they rejected Circle rejected Ripple's $5 billion offer. And so now they're in further discussions, or maybe they are, maybe they're not. So that's the most up-to-date thing. The rumor is they are still in conversation for Ripple to buy them, but this would be massive. This would be, billions of dollars worth of transactions that Circle does today with their partners would immediately come onto the XRP ledger and under Ripple's purview. So this is exactly the type of stuff we want to see. Whether or not it happens and actually gets bought, I don't think is as important if you look at it from this perspective, that this was a shot across the bow, not only for the market, so it's not only did Ripple offer to buy Circle, but they also recently agreed to acquire a prime brokerage, a Hidden Road, for $1.25 billion. This was the beginning of April. Now at the end of April, beginning of May, they're trying to buy Circle. So they're already getting a prime brokerage. Now they're trying to buy basically their biggest competitor in the space for the stable coins. And it's a sign of health and maturity for the not for the market, first of all, but especially for Ripple as a company, that they're trying to, they are showing the entire financial world and us retail investors as well. Hey, we're trying to not only just be a player in the space, but be the dominant player in the space. And I think that's what this was. And it's interesting because it still is, still playing out, but we've got so many exciting things going on with Ripple acquisitions. And then we still have, by our count, 18 ETFs or 17 ETFs that could go live in May or June. Paul Atkins, the new head of the SEC, was just sworn in and already met with Chris Larsen, who is the founder of Ripple. So we could be seeing a settlement sooner rather than later. But it looks like all of these catalysts are, moving forward. Ripple is going to be the bank of banks, and it's going to be using the XRP ledger and their liquidity hub, which is moving their ability to move money instantaneously anywhere in the world, will be powered by XRP. So we're seeing a lot, all the things that you would want to see, we're seeing every day.
So yeah, anyone that's doubted what XRP and Ripple can do, you will see a $10,000 XRP. It's just when. And then, for this year, it's, what are we going to see? Are we going to see 10, 15, 50, $100? It's just a matter of time when all these moves and pieces completely fall into place, but they're falling into place. It's actually happening faster than originally anticipated. So you can see that the price is gonna be affected by it. I'm thinking maybe June, July. You'll probably start seeing some shift in the price and upward momentum. I don't think the bull market's over. So what do you think?
It's barely begun. Yeah, it's the bull market's barely begun. Bitcoin's still under 100K, and really all of the banks, we're all going to be right. I think, because that everybody's right in a bull run. I remember when I first got into crypto in 2000, it was 2020, and then 2021 is when I started buying in. But I started studying it in the teens, and then in 2020. And you watch all these different YouTube videos trying to figure out what the heck is this thing, right? And you're watching all these different channels of these different influencers explaining stuff and all these sort of things. And the funny thing is, all of them gave price predictions every third video or whatever, and none of them were right ever. They were all wrong about price predictions. No matter what they said, it had no correlation. They say, I called it here. Okay, maybe they get lucky once or twice. But the funny thing was, when in November of 2021, which I think it was 21 or 22, was the peak of the crypto bull market. everybody's saying, oh, in 3 months, H bar, they just pull in random ones. H bar is going to be worth $3, and Ethereum will be worth $11,000. And look, all they're doing is looking at the chart, and they just multiply it. Hey, it moves this much, however many months or years ago. Maybe it'll do that over here, and it's a ratio, so it goes up proportionally in terms of the price action for it. They have no idea. Like, it's just a guess, right?
Yeah, nobody knows.
But everybody's saying, oh, during the bull market, like when the price actually moves, if Bitcoin actually goes up, it goes up basically in like 20 days, and then it'll trade sideways, from there. I mean, maybe it crashes all the way back down, but it moves so quickly, relative, and the rest of the time it just kind of grinds sideways, just like we see with XRP. It just goes boink, and then it just goes sideways forever. Then it goes boink, and then it goes sideways forever. Bitcoin does the same thing, but it just does it more often than XRP does, and that's probably due to the lawsuit. I think the price, when the lawsuit is over, the price will go. That's my thought. And also, it's not only that, I think the lawsuit is the catalyst for allowing all of the banks to get in. There's no point for the lawsuit. Put it this way, if we're right and XRP is this, unbelievable technology, it's going to transform the financial world, and every institution is going to use it. It's going to be the preferred settlement method for every single money mover in the world, right? Which is what it's putting a dent in the universe. That's what we're saying it's going to do. Then all the banks would presumably want to get in as quickly as possible and as much as possible. Well, if their preferred asset is still not legal for them to own because there's no laws, there's no regulatory framework, then they want it to be paused on the sideline so nobody else can have it either, right? They want the lawsuit to go on as long as they can because it allows the process of getting crypto laws passed to take place. Trump said in his first 100 days he'll have clear laws for Bitcoin and all this sort of stuff. Well, that didn't happen. We're past 100 days. But we've seen a ton of movement, and we're moving in the right direction. But I think the laws get passed, then the lawsuit ends, then the ETFs go live, everybody buys in, and that's when I think, if I had to guess how it would go down, it's gonna disappear off the shelves the second that they're allowed to buy it, right? Because the richest people in the world are gonna want to buy it. So I think that it's going to be, maybe I'm wrong, and it'll just kind of go up to $3 again, and maybe it'll go to $7, and maybe the laws don't get passed for 2 or 3 more years after midterms or something like that. And, we have a $7 XRP or whatever, or maybe it stays at $2 until we get the laws passed and the lawsuit ends anyway. I don't know, but if I had to guess, the lawsuit's going to end sometime this summer. When it does, everything's going to get approved. Everything's going to get bought up immediately. I think it's just a one and done movement, and I don't think we ever trade sideways again. But that's just my opinion. If I had to guess, you might say it's wishful thinking because, yeah, I'd be really happy because I own XRP, and if it went to $10,000 overnight, that'd be really something. I'd rather it go to $10,000 than $10. But I mean, just thinking of how it would perform functionally in that scenario, to me, it just seems like, the banks are going to keep it on the sideline until it's legal to play with. And then the second that the laws are in place, that's what's most important. The lawsuit ends, then they're allowed to buy it. And we see what we think we were going to see, for the past 5 years, so.
Yeah. So, I kind of agree with that. So once the lawsuits officially drop, and the ETFs go live, then, we can start hoping again, so.
Yeah. Hope springs eternal. And the funny thing is, we forgot to mention, Ripple's doing so much stuff. They had another acquisition of another financial institution that can offer these, it's been a while since we've had a podcast, but it's like they did such big, amazing things during that time. And April was such a crazy month for the economy, even though it went, the economy went like this. But it started out here and it ended right where it started. So it's like no harm, no foul, because people were so worried about the tariffs.
Ripple didn't stop making moves, when the tariffs were going through, people were panicking, there was blood in the streets. Ripple's still making acquisitions and mergers and setting things in motion. And you're seeing XRP price drop But trust me, that's temporary. That's only in the background. So just ignore all that noise and pay attention to what Ripple does, because Ripple is closely tied in with XRP, and what Ripple does is for the good of XRP, and they're making big moves in the background.
Yeah, and so yeah, just I'm hoping that we can have a yacht party come August or something like that, but one day at a time. And in the meantime, yeah, there have been so many exciting developments with Ripple and XRP over the past couple of months, and I'm really excited for what the future holds, and I think we're really really close. It's going to be sooner rather than later at this point. So we're really looking forward to what the next couple of months hold.
Yeah. So just a quick recap of this before we go. They're allowing XRP and XRP micro futures transactions to go live starting this month on the 19th. So May 19th, they'll start seeing people being able to purchase XRP futures, and that's big news for the crypto world. You can instead of purchasing the XRP yourself, you can purchase futures in it, and it's basically like trading futures. So
Yeah, and it's another tool that integrates XRP into the financial world and realm. It's really cool, and I mean and we've been over all their partnerships. Apparently, like Hidden Road who Ripple bought, has some deal with BlackRock as a partnership with them. So now Ripple is directly connected to BlackRock, and a lot of people have said that the holy grail of ETFs is for BlackRock to offer ETF. So if now Ripple, by virtue of their Hidden Road purchase, has a direct tie to BlackRock, I would imagine BlackRock would be interested in getting involved in an XRP ETF. Because if that happens, the price speculation just off that is going to go. That by itself, I think, would make the price go not necessarily to $10,000, but retail speculative investments and purchasing would get it up a couple of bucks. And so, just one more thing to be on the lookout for.
All right. Well, that's our episode today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll try and do the next one a lot sooner and not wait so long in between. But it's been fun. Thanks for joining us here on Prasad Pod. I'm your host, Jarrell Prasad.
And I'm Paul Campbell.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.
Yeah.